Relationships. When we hear that word, what do we all think about? We think about those relationships we might have with our mother or our brother, our friends or our spouse. But what about industrial brands? Do industrial brands need to be thinking about relationships? In this episode today, my guest is going to tell you why the answer is definitely yes. You must be paying attention to building relationships. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and you are listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast, where I go all over the world to speak with business leaders about their specific industries, about what marketing is working, what's not, and what trends they see for the future. These insights are going to help you grow your business year after year. So let's jump in with my great guest today, Zahra Awan, editor of Furnaces International. Hello, Zahra. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. You were the perfect person to help me with this topic today, because we met at Furnace North America, the trade show, and Zahra and I just started talking and we couldn't stop talking. We went on, I don't know, good 15, 20 minutes about how industrial brands need to concentrate on building relationships. And so my first question for you today is, why do you think everyone is starting to talk about relationship building?
I think that actually, in my opinion, the conversation of relationship building has always been there. Especially when I was a child, my mom would send me off to school and be like, the main important thing you have to do at school is find friends. And I'd be like, okay, friendships is the most important relationship, which is probably a very rose tinted way of telling a child you need to make relationships.
Yeah.
And the reality is that friendships are a black and white relationship, and relationships aren't that black and white. We have so many different types of relationships. You have those who you're connected with to push you to be the best you can be. You then have those who assist you for mutual gain. You also got those who wouldn't necessarily who make you do things that you wouldn't necessarily have originally have done, and you have those who you end up despising, I think, is another one.
Not all relationships work out.
Yes, exactly. But then the thing is that even those relationships where you end up despising one another, they're not always bad relationships, because you're always learning from them.
Yeah.
And I think that actually, if we are going to say that relationships has become a topic of conversation so readily now, it's probably because of COVID. We can all agree we weren't even able to talk to the local coffee shop guy who would serve us our coffee every morning originally. And I think that with those tiny micro conversations that we are so used to having, to then just being isolated to a single room for work where we rarely even talk to each other, we then lost relationships, but also learned how to grow and strengthen the relationships we had that we really, really found important. And yeah, that would be my opinion of why why relationships is now a topical conversation.
Yeah, and I agree, because especially in the B2B or the industrial space, before COVID, a lot of brands would just send out their marketing messages, and they would send big, massive promotions, but they weren't concentrating on segmenting and building a relationship with the individual. And when COVID hit, I agree. I think brands sat back and they decided that they needed to do a more quality way of handling their marketing so that they would get better results.
Exactly. Almost they became their own audience. We realized what it was like to be on the receiving end, because we were now in that position as well. We were now having our relationships tested.
Yes.
So from having our relationships tested, we kind of learned what we wanted from each other. And obviously, when we know what we want, it's easier to kind of implement that into workplace as well, and give others what we want.
And it also helped people start to eliminate the things that didn't help them, or like you said, those relationships that aren't great. And yes, you learn from them, but then those are the ones you can push to the side and concentrate on the ones that really have value.
Exactly. And I think that actually valuable relationships are way better than like quality over quantity. That is
Yes,
a key with relationships. So
that
yeah,
is.
I think that it's relationships has become a topic of conversation so important with COVID, and we've learned so much from it.
Yeah, I agree. Our company was founded 42 years ago. And when my mother founded the company, it has always been quality over quantity. It was never to have, hundreds and hundreds of clients. It was about having a select few and giving them good quality service. So
Exactly.
now, how do you feel relationship building can help industrial brands?
So I work with a company that's it's a big media company. I work under two of their portfolios. One's Furnaces International and the other is Aluminium International today. So two very heavy metal industry or heavy industries. And as a portfolio, our main product, I'd say, is our magazine. We have a physical copy magazine for both issues, both portfolios, sorry. And these are great, but I think the population and our audience has now developed a need for more. So we actually compensated and helped the industry with their relationships through webinars, online events. We introduced like just normal phone calls, just actually be able to speak to people easily, not only just through emails. And I think that kind of showed us that despite restrictions, we are still able to maintain relationships. And the problem with the industry is I think that it's so easy to just see what we used to do.
Yes.
So in being used to and comfortable with certain things, AIT, which is Aluminium International today, and Furnaces International, we both have this online event where we then maintain people's relationships that they may have kind of built in person, and using online events, you can maintain that relationship so that the next time you meet that person, you're not back to square one where you've completely forgotten who they are, what their name is, and you have to do it all over again. You remember who they are, you're in their world, like,
so you can build off of it each time, developing even a deeper relationship versus going out and meeting someone for the first time.
Exactly. And I think that this has definitely been a way and is going to be a way, especially in Europe. I mean, you guys have probably all heard how struggles and challenges are kind of toppling over on top of each other. And I do think that relationships are kind of our life jacket to kind of protecting us and helping each other, especially in industry.
Yeah. And, this is another reason why when I have clients and they're looking at different marketing channels to use, I always say, go to industry specific publications, because listen to everything you're doing to develop these relationships with subscribers. And you make sure that they only get promotions that they really would be interested in receiving.
Yes, well, that's such a good point. I mean, we don't want your readership to suddenly see, I don't know, something about
skincare or
literally skincare or something like that, just because they've given us money to feature in the magazine. Unless they've got sustainable packaging that includes aluminium, we're not interested.
Right.
And I think the thing is that actually our audience isn't either. If they're coming to have our magazine, we're a niche company, we're a niche portfolio, and we understand that. And like myself and my colleagues are so well rehearsed on the industry. We've been there through it with you guys, we're watching you. And I think actually being as a magazine, you've got the whole value chain, because we're not obviously in one company, we're looking at the whole thing. So it is interesting because we see what you are all talking about and what all the issues are. And we listen to you guys too. I think the industry, if you want something, if our audience wants something, we will try our best and potentially be able to, well, more than potentially, probably be able to give it to you.
But
And I
that's how
think
your publication can grow into the future, is if you show, and this is same with all marketing, no matter what you're marketing, if you understand what are those individuals' challenges or their goals, what are they trying to accomplish? And if you can give them that information that offers value, yeah, they're going to subscribe to your magazine. They're going to go to your trade show. Or for me, yes, they're going to want the product or service my client is marketing because you get them. You understand them and you can help them.
exactly. And I think it is key to understand what your audience wants. Otherwise, your product isn't going to be as good.
Yeah. So what would you say are the 3 top ways that industrial brands can start to build relationships? Because with some companies, this is new to them. They were doing more the generic messaging. They didn't really feel, or they felt like they were so big in the space. We don't need to build relationships. They know the name. But how can brands get started?
I think from learning the industry point of view as well, because your brand, you accidentally become quite insular. You see your product as a center, but you kind of forget there is a solar system around it. And I think I've done it. I've been there. I was like, when I first joined this industry, I was very confused. There are so many parts to it. And the best way, I think, is trade shows.
Yeah.
I think attending trade shows, attending those conferences and those meetings, especially with those industry specialists who have been there for many, many years more than I have been in the industry for,
Yeah.
and learning from those people with experience. I think that's my top one.
Mhm.
As for the others, it's then maintaining relationships. So finding out what they attend, almost finding out what they're interested in.
Yeah.
And I think finding your circle. Of course, as a company, you want to stay specific. You don't want to be working with people who are completely the opposite end of the value chain, because they might not necessarily be as relevant to what you're trying to do.
Right.
But the thing with events is, for example, we have one on green aluminium. That's great for the whole value chain. But
Right.
then in that, we often provide breakout rooms, which is there when you can find, the smaller groups of people who are more related to your topic of conversation.
Mhm.
So I think finding those kind of smaller areas, smaller places to talk about your thing
Yeah.
with other specialists is so key.
Yes.
And I think it's narrowing down, the relationship, again, filtering them out, making sure that the best of the best is there for
Right.
your company, and making sure that there's quality over quantity.
Yes.
And my third would be, I think it's just making sure that you're I think every company's aim is to be global, or at
Yeah.
least,
Yeah.
a large company in their area,
Uh-huh.
and human nature to want to be the best.
Right.
I think it's learning your market as well. So you can learn the business to business, but people often forget that it's also business to customer. And well, of course, for us, it's easy to be like, who is our customer? Because, it is the customer a business, or is the customer somebody else? And that's the thing, because, you have businesses working with businesses, and technically they can be customers, but you've got
Right.
the end people, you've got people, the consumers, and I think they're just as important. Knowing the knowledge of, say, the aluminium industry or the
Right.
furnace industry, and learning about the process of making something. I mean, I came out of my education and suddenly I was thrown into this industry, and I had no idea what industry even was. Like, I had no
You
idea.
probably never thought there was an industry like this.
Exactly. And I mean, like, who would, if you're just sat at home watching a TV, you don't think about, the metal that's in that TV making it
Right.
work. You're just watching it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's easy to forget that actually there
Yeah.
are people in the world who don't know this information, and the stressfulness of it sometimes, but also the amazing nature of it, like
Right.
the complex processes, and just the complexity of how we get over so many challenges, and especially sustainability.
Yeah.
And providing them with a product that is better just in general, I think is so easily forgotten as a consumer. So yeah, I definitely think that would be my 3. So yeah.
I have to agree with all three of yours. I want to object, because people like it when people argue, but
Yeah.
when I talk to customers about their marketing, I start with the first one too. I said, you want to get to really know your industry or who your customers might be? Go to a trade show. Go see what they're talking about. Look at trade, publications, see what articles they're writing about. Look at the different pieces of equipment, how you use it. You can get a wealth of information when you go to trade shows. And then also, like you said, gone are the days of just trying to make a relationship with everyone. You find your specific niche. And when I talk about that kinds, I say, well, think about it. When you go to a dinner party, there's lots of people there. Who are the people you're going to talk to afterwards? It's someone that you have created a common, either you have something in common, whether it's, you both downhill ski, or you both read this book, or for you and I, it was just talking about industrial marketing and the floodgates opened up and we were like, she so gets me.
Exactly. And it's so true. I mean, we wouldn't be here today unless we had made some sort of common ground. And for us, it was that.
So now for Furnace International, that is such a specific space. And you would think that, they don't really have to worry about building relationships because people that are in that space will become a subscriber. But tell me why that's not correct, why you still have to do that.
I think if you just left people to, browse the internet and gave them, I don't know what the percentage is of the chances of finding a needle in a haystack as large as the internet. But that's basically what you're doing. If you, and I mean, even if the industry knows who you are, there are so many companies that I'm still finding out about, just for example, like, I don't know, cake brands. And I constantly find a new cake that I like the taste of. And it's like, the reason why I found that is because somebody's put it in my face.
Right.
And I think that although Furnaces International is such a niche subject, people, one, don't realize they need it. Two, when they find out about it, you're like, oh, okay, so now what do I do with this? How do I use this? So you have to answer those questions. You have to be like, this is who we are. This is what we do and what we can do for you. And building relationships with them is then a part of all that. Like, that's the base, that's the foundation of it all.
Right.
I mean, Furnaces International was restructured and rebranded recently. So obviously, I think in manufacturing industry, we're quite settled in our ways, and turning digital is quite the challenge. Not only with technologies within the manufacturing functions and that, but also
you're not alone, that, right? There's lots of industrial publications and manufacturers that are in the same boat as you.
Exactly. And actually, one of the funniest things about Furnaces International, we are a digital publication. We have forced ourselves and the industry to realize that actually being connected, you need the internet. We are still a physical publication. We still do print one publication a year. But we have made people realize, I think, as well, and we've had such good reception, that actually the internet is a good place, and things get spread a lot wider than you would expect.
Really do.
I think the best examples of that actually is our LinkedIn page. So for AIT, we have 2,000 followers on it, and we've only been on there for just over a year.
Right.
And for Furnaces, we have had that LinkedIn page for 7 months, and we've got 190 followers. Now, just numbers, I think people just are like, oh yeah, 2,000 followers, put it up, cool. 2,000 people in a room, you start talking to them, and it's a slightly different story.
And also 2,000 people who are interested in this specific space is a big deal, where we go back to the quality over quantity. You don't want to have 10,000, 20,000 followers who maybe do something a little bit with metals. You want those people that are really interested in this space. And that's why those are good quality people on LinkedIn. That's all you need.
Exactly. And I think it's so important to think, like, it's great if we have 10,000 followers, but if they're not even reading our content, what's the point?
And advertisers don't want that either.
No.
Advertisers would rather you have those people who are really involved in the space and will be interested in what they have versus those people, they get it, but they never read it. They never open it.
Exactly.
That's the point.
And I think that actually, again, moving back towards the need and the want for the attention of the industry to further this international and the digital side of things, that's 190 followers on a brand new LinkedIn page in 7 months. Like, that's a lot of people who want and need that platform. And again, LinkedIn's Aluminium International today, we get such a draw. 2,000 followers is the number that people follow us, but we have a lot more impressions. And impressions, I think, impressions are people who are engaging in some sort of way with the post that you have put up. And that can sometimes go way beyond 2,000. It surprises me how many people I have then actually managed to just touch just with one post. Like, I've spoken to this person, and it's like, it's crazy. You don't realize that, these are just numbers, but they are people behind those numbers. And engagement is so key and important when you're building relationships, obviously.
It is. And with all those social posts also, again, it just reinforces your knowledge in the space and the value you bring them and how you can help them. And that's what really, nowadays there is a lot of junk out there in the social media space, email space, really all of them. Everyone who's still trying to do the gimmick side of marketing. But the companies that are trying to offer value, that's where LinkedIn and emails and everything can be great channels to get that value out that educates the people. You're not selling, you're just trying to educate.
Yes. And I think that's the key. Like, education is something that I think with brands and stuff, you kind of forget. You're like, you want people to buy your product, and that's great, but you're selling a product. We want to know what that product is. We want to learn about it. And nothing's going to sell if you don't know what it is.
Right.
Which is where LinkedIn, like you say, comes. And we've got a nice, my junk folder and my emails is ridiculous. Every day I have to empty it out. And funnily enough, people on LinkedIn are only going to interact with you if they are interested in what you're talking about, because you can easily scroll through it. And I think I do think it's kind of showing us what the future will look like, especially for marketing and communication, which is quite exciting for me, and I think for everybody as well, despite some people perhaps not wanting to be as, or being as keen to move over to it. I think it's something that's inevitable. And essentially, like, sustainability is never going to be sacrificed in the name of anything with our companies and our industry now. Sustainability is such a take on, we just take it for granted. It's sustainable is the product. That's what technology and social media is now going to be for marketing, I think.
Yeah, I agree, because so many companies now are trying to put that ESG component within their mission. So sustainability is going to be right up there. The environmental governance is all going to be right up there. How companies are run and building those relationships, that I strongly believe only the brands that concentrate on this are the brands that are going to grow year after year, because people are going to start to realize, hey, I'm going to go to the people who truly care. If you don't care, forget it. You know what? I'll look for something cheaper or less expensive. They'll go price shopping. But if you really care, then they're going to want to stay with your brand.
Exactly. And I think that's just key. That's like summarizes it all.
Wonderful.
Really.
Well, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's so great to hear your viewpoints, because you come from such an industrial space that relationships do matter.
They do matter. Everybody make sure that you write that down. No, they do. They are very important. And I think I've definitely learned that firsthand. especially as a media company.
Well, excellent. I wish you all the success in the future.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be hosted on this, and you're a great host. I really
thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss our next episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to send me an email to dpeterson@worldinnovators.com. Till next time, have a great day.